This is the Danger Close podcast, Beyond the Books with me, Jack Carr. Welcome to the Danger Close podcast, an Ironclad original presented by Navy Federal Credit Union. My guest today is my friend Mark Greaney. Mark Greaney is the author of a number of Gray Man novels, which we discuss on the podcast. He's also the author of Red Metal Over There with Ripley Rawlings and the new book Armored right here, which introduces a new character to the Mark Greaney universe. Awesome guy. His Gray Man novel was also turned into a movie this summer. It is out on Netflix now. It is awesome, so definitely check that out. Check out the books. And now, without further ado, Mark Greaney. What's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good to see you. I think you're the, I think I've had you on this podcast more than anybody else now. Yes, winner.
What are we going to talk? We'll have to talk about something different.
I know. People can go back and listen to the whole background and the other podcasts. But how's it going, man? Good to see you.
It's going great.
Yeah.
I love your new setup. That is, I want to walk around there and smell the wall. That's really cool.
Come on in. Come on out anytime. It's, so this is the third one, I think, that I've recorded from here. This is a recording week. So third one and your third time doing it. So awesome. Yeah,
Thanks
man.
for having me.
Dude, of course. And you're finishing up the next novel, right? Like you're doing edits.
Yeah. I'm doing edits on my 12th Gray Man right now.
Well, thank you for taking time to do that. Cause I know
my pleasure.
Edits and deadline, and then people are asking you to do things. And it's like, I can't even return a text or an email cause it gets crazy. So thanks for taking the time. I'll make sure that I look at the clock and get you out of here so you can get back to edits. But 12th Gray Man, amazing.
Yep.
I want to ask you about the research trip that you just got finished doing or coming back from. But movie, Gray Man movie, Netflix, awesome. How crazy,
Thanks, man. It's crazy. I can't even remember the numbers, but like it's done really well. You know. It's one of those things. The critics didn't love it, the viewers did, and if you got to pick one, what are you going to pick? I think you know the answer.
I definitely know the answer. You want your audience, your readership, your viewers. But your critic score, I saw, I just jumped on real quick, is definitely higher than the Terminalist score on Rotten Tomatoes. But they're right there, which is kind of cool because they're very similar.
Yours is doing great, and just anecdote, like obviously I saw it, loved it, but just anecdotally, what everybody's saying is, positive about yours. So, I mean, that's got to look good for the future too. Yeah.
We'll see. It's one of those things. Like yours is already, they announced already a sequel that's coming out. Is it going to be the next novel with the title? Do you know, or is it like a Gray Man 2, or is it like 3, 4? Like, is that how they're going to do it?
I talked to the screenwriter who's doing it, Steve McFeely, and I don't know if I'm supposed to say.
That's okay. No worries.
It's one of those things. It's still kind of in the early stage, but it was funny because when I was there at the premiere in LA, I was going like, man, I hope they do another one. And like Reggae John Page kind of cocked his head. He goes, yeah, something's cooking. You don't know, and I'm like, well, I mean, I've rumors, but it was nice for them to actually confirm that they will be doing the next one.
Yeah, no, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Great. And yours got optioned right out of the gate. So like, was it 2009 that the Gray Man got its first option?
Yeah, 2009, the book came out in September, and I guess it was August. So it was like a month before the book came out. And my book wasn't a massive hardcover release or by any means. It was a, mass market paperback release. It's my first book. Obviously, I was thrilled to have that, but, it wasn't like something everybody was talking about or anything like that. So I was just thrilled to have that option because that was this thing that when you went to the little book store where 12 people who don't even know you showed up because they're polite, you can say, well, it's been optioned by Hollywood. That's a good thing. And it's truly as far as I thought I'd ever get with it. And then at each stage, when every time something seemed like it was making it get closer to being a movie, I kept just sort of, like suppressing my hopes because it's like the minute I hoped for it, it's going to fall apart.
Yeah.
And that went on all the way until Ryan Gosling was cast and it was greenlit and everything. I kept thinking it would fall apart just because I tuned myself to feel that way.
No, I remember talking to you about it after like it was announced and all the trade stuff and I think they were actually filming and you were still like, Hey, I'm not like you were still skeptical about talking about it, and because of past experience and just knowing how things can go off the rails,
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I'm a glasses half full kind of guy, and I'm like, I'm happy with what's happened already, and if more comes, then that's fantastic. And I still feel that way if they don't end up making a second one, even though that
I think it's on. I think it's on track. It looks like
on track. Yeah.
And then your experience, it was so it was over a decade, and it got optioned right out of the gate. And then did you buy it back at some point, or did you just get it back because something expired and then get to do it again, or how did that work?
Yeah, that's it exactly. We extended. The first studio was New Regency, and had a great relationship with them. It just never was able to get made, and they'd extended. They'd asked us to extend the option, and we did. And then it kind of came up again, and I got the rights back, and immediately there was just for the first time I was like, in 2009, I was so excited that somebody was offering, to option it. And then in 2014, when it came back around, I was having all these conference calls, like, all took place in about a week period. But like, at 2 p.m., you're going to talk to this producer. At 8 p.m., you're going to go on a conference call with the Russo brothers, and, and Sony and all these different things. And it was just this whirlwind of stuff that just came on. And I went with the Russo brothers and Sony. And then Sony ended up, I guess, selling to Netflix, the project. And the Russo brothers did it. So yeah, it was a lengthy journey.
Yeah, it's interesting. The getting the rights back, like that's like I don't think I'll ever get the rights back to it, especially now. But
but that's okay, right?
Yeah, it's okay. We got got something made with the exact person I wanted to star and the exact director that I wanted, and got to be a part of it. So I got to learn so much about that process and about screenwriting, and met a lot of amazing people. So it was just a positive experience all the way around. So I can be more thrilled. But yeah, you got to do the premiere. I saw you at the premiere in LA. So that was awesome, and they did a great job with it. I mean, what an awesome movie, and seeing it up there after all that time. I mean, what were when you first sat down and saw it? Did you get to screen it at home first, or did you see it for the first time in the theater?
I went to a screening in New York. I was just up there for Thriller Fest, and Netflix just arranged this little screening thing, which I didn't even know was the deal, but there was like a small theater in an office building. And I went in there with my wife and my agent, my editor, and some other people from my publishing house. And I guess there were like 8 of us in there in this theater. And, I think we signed a bunch of papers saying, we wouldn't talk about it or anything. And at that point, it was funny, some of the CGI hadn't been completed. Mm-hmm. So there would be scenes where suddenly everybody would kind of turn into animated characters for a second. And I really, really liked it. I never envisioned, well, first I'd read the screenplay and I'd read subsequent screenplays. So I knew it wasn't going to be, shot for shot like the book. And I never expected it to be like that anyhow. And I thought it was 50%, 60% of the book. And a lot of the other changes they made, I liked. And there were even parts in the story when I watched it, I thought, I don't know. I think my idea or my line there would have landed better than what they used. But I was like, it didn't make me mad. It actually made me happy. I'm like, oh wow, I see that I have some value to this process. So I really love the movie. I don't think Ryan Gosling could have possibly been any better in the character. He played the character exactly the way it was written. I thought the relationship between him and the little girl was done perfectly, and it would have been so easy to make that cheesy and over the top, or turn that into something that it wasn't in the book. In the book, it's about this kind of naive guy that's only trained for one thing, that sort of has to care for this young girl. And of course he does it very sort of awkwardly. And they captured that really well in the book. And I thought they did a really good job. It's just, the complaints that I get, and I'm sure you see it too, is they're like, wait, Billy Bob Thornton's not British. This movie sucks.
I know.
Because
it's like
the guy's British or one thing or another. And some of them are reasonable things. They're like, for the future movies, they'll have to go down a slightly different path than the way that I built it. And I understand that criticism. I also understand the screenwriters, they have to speak with a shorthand. So literally in the first 60 seconds of the movie, they sort of set up Cord's backstory, the hero's backstory, and where he's going and all that other stuff. I didn't write it like that, A, because I didn't know it was going to be a series, and B, because as a writer, you have, a novelist, you have time to sort of build out and flesh out this thing throughout the story. And so I understood the choices they made, and I love the movie overall.
Yeah, it's interesting. I tried to, as much as I could, prep ahead of time, like weave it into conversations or into a post on social or an interview. Like, hey, it's not going to be exactly like the book. So if that's your bar, if you're going to take the book and watch it and look back and forth and say, nope, that's different. I hate this thing. Like, if that's the bar, then probably don't watch. Like, maybe watch something else.
I had that exact experience, and I hope it's okay to say this, but I had a conversation with a guy about Terminal List. I was doing a signing like a week before my film came out, and I'd already seen it. And this guy was like, "Yeah, I hope it's better than Terminal List." I'm like, "Why? Yeah, that's great." And he goes, "Well, it's not, because in the book, a guy Reese takes a boat ride from, I can't remember, the Azores to so and so. And in the movie, he takes
the other way
Peru to somewhere else." And I just looked at him. I was like, "You might want to stay away from the Gray Man movie, because
I know
if that is your, if that is your sort of bellwether for whether or not a film is good." I just think, we've seen all these movies. You and I have had conversations about, the classic movies. We both sort of grew up at a great time for watching these types of films. And we've read a lot of the books, and they're not always the same. I would say The Hunt for Red October, that film, is as close.
I was going to say, that's exactly the example I was just going to use. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that there are that many more examples. Silence of the Lambs was pretty dang close. Yeah. But I mean, usually, but usually there's tons of changes, and it's art, so it's such a subjective thing.
It's subjective.
And if you and I go and look at our reviews right now, you'll see somebody very sure of themselves saying we suck, and the next person very sure of themselves says we're brilliant. Yeah. And we're probably somewhere in the middle.
And you can't let it get to you. It's like some of those things, some of them are personal, because some of them get excessively mean, and I'm like, what can you do? But I knew there was going to be changes going in, of course. And, the classic example I always like to bring up is First Blood book versus First Blood movie. Very different.
Big difference, both fantastic.
Exactly.
And they're both still there. That's the, and I had this conversation with Lee Child once. He tells people, he's like, that book is still there on the shelf. Yeah. And it's unchanged. No one's changed it. I've had people, send me who are big fans of the series, and I'm not mad at them, but they send me things saying, this has ruined the books for me now. And I think about that, and I go like, wow, if I went to the Louvre and saw not that I'm comparing myself to, Leonardo da Vinci, but if I went to the Louvre and saw the Mona Lisa, and then I saw, a 10th grader draw a painting of it, it wouldn't ruin the painting in the Louvre. I think that's just stupid. And when people say that, I'm just like, I'm sorry, I don't follow your logic.
I know,
but go with God, do your thing.
I think a lot of people are going to have a hard time in life with just that attitude in general. And you don't want to say that, but it's true. Yeah. Like, if you go through looking for the negative always, or just like, you can pull out the positives. Like, you could do that same thing, like with the book, Yours or Mine, watch the shows and be like, oh, look, I see that. That's a little different. Oh, interesting. Maybe, whether you like it or not, but hey, okay, interesting. Wait, why did they do that? Or whatever it is. And it's subjective. But it's going to be, life in general, I think, is going to be tough if you just go to work every day looking for a negative, or in a relationship looking for the negative, or whatever else. It's just tough.
You might have seen this too, but I've seen this a lot, where people who are big fans of the book are like, well, I watched it with my girlfriend and she loved it because she hadn't read the books, but I was bugged by this, or I was bugged by that. And it's like, well, what do you think the director's mission is? Is it to make an entertaining film, or is it to replicate Mark Greaney's book or Jack Carr's book?
Exactly.
It's to make an entertaining film. And so, when you take away the fact, if you just watch the film fresh, and a lot of people have said, I went back and saw it a second time, third time, looked at it just for, the entertainment value of the film, and I really enjoyed it. And so, you don't get mad at people. It sounds like we're kind of like ragging on people. But you and I are passionate about things that we've read and things that we've seen and we liked and we didn't. And it hits close to home when it's your own baby, I guess. But then, I look at my wife said, the movie and the book are not identical twins; they're cousins. There's similarities, but there's similarities, and then there's things that are gonna be different.
Nice, Allison. Tell her I'm gonna use that. That's a great one. I really like that. Yeah, that's fantastic. She should write. She's got a future. Yeah,
she's there in my corner.
Nice. That's amazing. Yeah, I learned so much from that process, and it even impacted this last book because we were in the process of screenwriting and filming as I was writing In the Blood, and I learned a lot from the screenwriting side of the house, and then from the storytelling side of the house visually from the director, from Antoine, and just seeing how they did these, what the actors brought, and that impacted the last book, and I find it is now impacting this sixth one that I'm writing right now as well. Yeah. And there's some things I like better. I mean, I like what they did with my Ben Edwards character, a CIA guy. I really like what they did with that. I thought a lot of the changes were built upon a foundation and made it much better for a visual depiction.
Yeah. And then also you see the dialogue that the other writers have chosen, and you can kind of learn a little bit. You can kind of go like, wow, that I kind of liked that dialogue, and I was told by the screenwriters for Gray Man, or Steve McFeely specifically, that a lot of the lines that I was mentioning to him that I thought were really good and better what I had in the book, he said that was just Ryan on the day, thinking Ryan Gosling, just like thinking that would be like a good thing to say or whatever. Nice. And then you just think like, okay, how can I make my dialogue more authentic? And one way to make it more authentic is just to be there on the day and say, what would he say? What was your character say at this moment?
And they bring different things to it. There's a lot of things that changed because of what Chris or what Taylor or whoever brought to their role that then impacted things in episode 4, 5, and 6, just because of what they're bringing to it that you can't really imagine as you're in an air-conditioned room planning this thing out as you screenwrite. So it's it was a really interesting process, but we almost had an awkward moment actually. And here's Gray Man for everybody right here. Awesome. There's a new cover, which I really love. That was a great cover I thought they did for the movie tie-in.
Oh, got it
right there. There it is. Nice. Yeah, I think that's awesome. I love how those colors work together right there. But we almost had an awkward moment. And I forget if I talked about this we did a series of podcasts on the Terminal List where I sat down with the showrunner and my buddy Jared Shaw, who gave the book to Chris and who stars as Boozer in the show, where we talk about everything. I'm not sure if we talked about this on the podcast or off, but as we got to that final scene, we really wanted to film on this. It was supposed to be the Pacific Northwest, but it was a lake close to LA. We had to do some movie magic there, but it was very expensive to move everybody, even though it's the LA area-ish. Pick everything up, move out there, find this place, rent this place, like do this crazy filming, with other people around, neighbors and all the rest of it. And so we had to go over budget for that one, I think. But the backup was the final scene in The Gray Man. Was that it was the Virginia house, at the end. That was what we were. That was the whole assault at the end of The Terminal List. Was going to be there. So we almost had two shows coming out, within weeks of each other with the exact same location.
The real location. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Isn't that great?
I think people would have noticed.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. That could have been kind of fun though. You could put screenshots next to each other. But it was almost the same. And we ended up filming in the place that we wanted. But that was almost... That was almost the same spot. So, movie, I mean, awesome. Congratulations. Yeah, absolutely incredible.
Thanks so much.
You've been so busy. You've done that. You're traveling. You had your latest Gray Man come out this year and Armored come out this year. What's for Armored, did the audio drop first, or was I just imagining that because I saw ads for it first or something?
Yeah, no, I originally wrote Armored as an audio play because Audible asked me to do an audio play, where they hire actors. It's not a guy reading a book to you. It's actors and sound effects and music. So there's guns and there's trucks and airplanes and stuff that you hear. And they hire actual, good quality actors, mostly stage actors, to do it. So that came out last December. Yeah. But before it came out, I had my editor, Tom Colgan, read it. And he's like, well, you own the intellectual property for this. We'd love to do it as novels, even though it's coming out in a different form. because in a novel you can go in other directions with it and make it a bigger and broader story. So that's what I did. That turned into Armor the novel, and it was a cool experience. I'd had that story in my head and partially on paper for over 10 years.
Yeah.
So to have it, ultimately come out as an audio play, and then 6 months later as a 150,000 word novel was kind of cool.
Yeah, because that's what I thought. I thought it was December, and then I went back right before we jumped on, and I jumped on Amazon to click at that date when you scroll down, a little bit, and I clicked on audio, and it said July 5th, and I'm like, am I losing my mind? Like, I know this came out in December.
There's an audio, like a regular audio narration.
Got it. Okay.
As well. So yeah.
Got it. Okay. That was confusing. Got it.
Yeah.
So how many, so you take that script that you wrote for the audio, and what did you do? Did you set it down next to your computer and then kind of look and start typing away to make the novel? What was that like?
Yeah, it's sort of like that. I imagined writing the novel was going to be so much easier because I had such the blueprint for the story. And I guess it was easier than just, making it out of scratch. But at the same time, every step of the way, I was like, well, I can't do this the way I did it in the audio play, because the audio play, it gives you a lot of opportunities that you don't have in a book, because, the emotions that the characters you can, are really like on display.
Yeah.
But it also has some restrictions. Like, it's kind of hard to set up a complicated scene. And you know how that is like, I've got a scene where this guy has a sight line on this, but this guy can't see him, and there's a third party, overwatching that. You can't pull that off in an audio play unless you've got somebody narrating it, which really kind of dumbs down the whole process. And so I had to pretty much write it from scratch, although I knew the story and where I would go. But I also added a bunch of things. There's a lot of backstory that's in the novel. You can't do really backstory in an audio play. I mean, you can do flashbacks, but you really have to distinguish that. And so there's a husband and wife in Armored. This guy, Josh Duffy, who's a military contractor, and his wife, Nicole, he's a private military contractor. His wife, Nicole, is a former Apache pilot, Army captain. And in the book, you're able to sort of go back and see how they met, and they met in a very dramatic fashion, as people do in thrillers. And it was cool to, go back for 50 pages and show them in the Middle East and Syria and their meeting, and, things you couldn't do in the audio play. So it was fun to flesh out this story that you spend so much time with.
And it ended up being a lot more work than you anticipated, or
yes.
Yeah,
everything's
always
more work than I anticipated. Everything's more work, and each year to generate the same number of words is harder and harder.
And you generate a lot of words. My closest one to me, when I put them on the shelf like next to each other, the Devil's Hand is my longest, and it looks similar to yours. But you have more of a Tom Clancy-esque number of pages, number of words. And that's a lot of work. I mean, you're doing, so you did this, and you're Gray Man, and you had the show come out, and you're over your next book. Like, that's crazy town.
Yeah, this has been a really tough year because, I mean, I've known for a while that this year was going to be tough. And so when I started writing the 12th Gray Man book at the beginning of the year, I was like, all right, you really need to knock this out by May, because by June, things are going to be insane. But I had a book that came out in February. I had some location research that I did in March. And then June was Thriller Fest, and I was up there for the full thing because I taught a class up there and emceed the banquet. And it was like the whole thing, I was busy. And so there were all these things, and I didn't get this book the first draft of the book turned in till August 5th. And, I wanted to have it in, by June at the latest. And then instantly after I finished, I turned the book in, I got on a plane with my wife, and I went and did more location research for the book that I just turned in, because as I was writing, sort of near the end, I was like, God, I have to go to these places. In Switzerland and Italy, places I'd sort of been before, but not with an eye for what I needed for this book. So, I just went and did a research trip, and I'm incorporating all that into the next round, into the second draft of edits right now. And that's where I am now. So this book I've been working on it for 8 months already. And, usually a Gray Man book is done in about 6.
Okay. I need to get on that schedule. I'm taking notes as we talk. A lot of these questions I'm asking, yes, for the podcast, but also for my personal schedule and professional development. But I think it's kind of, it worked out well on Savage Son to go to Kamchatka, Russia, right as it was already done, essentially, for the most part, and then go back and incorporate everything that I learned from that trip in. For whatever reason, it worked really well that way, maybe because you don't have the stress of worrying about it being quote unquote done. Now it's more refinement and adding to it. So that worked out really well on that one. And then COVID hit for the next one. There was no travel, but there's on Armored. So when you're thinking about a second one maybe, and you're thinking, is there a second audio play type version and novel / audiobook, or what does that look like?
I'm not going to write another audio script for Armored. I might do another one down the road because I like to do it. I like how it came out. Mm-hmm. And then, I spent so much time sort of learning how to do it. Then I feel like, that's a skill set that I need to exercise here and there. But there will be a second Armored, and I should have already started on it. I've jotted down a bunch of ideas, but I haven't begun. I'm not exactly sure when it will come out.
We'll edit that out for Tom Colgan.
He'll tell me when it's coming out, and then I will manufacture the book.
Nice.
So that there will be a second Armored. Yeah.
And then when you're thinking about your schedule then now, so now it would be 2 separate series. How in your mind are you segmenting your year essentially then when you're looking at 2 separate series?
Well, I can't keep doing 2 books a year, and I've said that for years.
You said that for the last over a decade, and for people that don't know, you were doing Gray Man series and you were doing the Tom Clancy series at the same. I mean, and those are thick books, like we talked about. Like these are serious.
Yeah, some of those Clancy books were 200,000, and the Gray Man are 150 to 165 or so thousand.
Yeah, for those listening, that's like 2 books in one.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah. And that's a self-inflicted wound, as I always say. It's like no one ever. I mean, Clancy obviously are going to be big novels, but Gray Man is just sort of expanded on its own. I really feel like I want to do a Gray Man book and then another project, when I can, instead of like I've got to have it done by December so it can come out on this date next year.
Right.
I've written 20. Burners will be my 23rd novel. Wow. And this was the toughest one to write. And I said that last year because last year was the toughest one to write. And, it just is harder and harder to find things you haven't done. Now I do so much more writing that I end up throwing away. It's incredible. And in the olden days, if I wrote it, it was going to end up in a book.
Yeah.
But now I'll write entire chapters or multiple chapters or entire, full plot lines. And I'll just be like, it's starting to sound like something else that I've done, or it just seems a little derivative and I don't want to go down that route. So it's like, okay, come up with something fresh. Really? So, for all the writing that I do, I end up pulling out a ton of it. I keep everything I pulled out in the hopes that I can retool it or use it somewhere down the road. But it's harder to do. And I do say that every year, but every year it's harder to do. And this year was with the movie coming out, with the book release in February and another one in July, and just family stuff. I had a couple of family trips to go on and everything. This was and location research trips. This was a very difficult year. Yeah,
I mean, and you got married over the last 2 years in there too. So so you have a lot of things to juggle. Man, that is wild. I can see that happening. I mean, 20 plus novels is a lot of material. And I'm only on 6, but on this 6th one, for the first time, yesterday, the day before, I started to write a chapter, and I was like, I swore that I was making this up for the first time, and that it was just maybe an idea I had in the last book. And then I stopped and thought about it, and I really had to think about it. And then I went back and looked, and sure enough, I'd used it in the last one. I'm like, no way! Like things are starting. This conflation that we used in the Terminal List series on TV is starting to happen to me in real life. This conflation between novels or things that I want to incorporate and have incorporated, but just think that maybe I haven't yet. So I can see how that is can become a real issue, especially over 20 novels. That's a lot.
Yeah. Just like you said, there's a lot of things that you sort of come up with and don't end up writing, but go like, yeah, this. And then so when you start to write them later, you're going, all right, have I done this, or have I, or have not done this? Or I spend a lot of times. There's a recurring character, or a guy that's just coming back in the second book, a villain in my new book, Burner, and he was in another book I wrote called Agent in Place. And I was like, all right, what do I remember about this guy? And I remembered some big aspects of the character, but I didn't remember enough. And I'm like, all right, I'm putting this same guy in a new book. I have to go back and read this to see who he was and how he talked, and like what his just kind of what his vibe was. Yeah. And that's not something that's just automatically in your memory banks for the rest of your life. Once you leave a book and go into the next one, you leave a lot of that stuff behind, and it's hard to reach back and grab it.
It is, even with recurring characters. Did you have a Bible yet? I've heard authors talk about having a Bible with all their characters, so you can flip through like a physical thing, and you can, maybe it's it's probably digital too, but flip to a folder and be like, Court Gentry, obviously you probably know that one pretty well, but a couple other ones like, what was the director of the CIA? How did I spell her name or his name? Yeah. And go to that, and what was their background again? And where did they go to school? Like, do you have one of those? I don't yet, but I feel like I need one.
I need one. It's a great idea. Our friend Brad Taylor, I know he
does one.
I think he's got a pretty defined. We were doing a signing together, and he's like, I'm sure Mark's the same way. I've got this blah 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 blah. How it's all lined out, so I can go here. It's like all organized, and I was like, yeah, that seems like a good idea. The only thing I have is one PDF file that has all my books in it. So you can do like a word search or a name search or a location search, and it'll show you in each book. And that's actually been super helpful. No, it's been super helpful. Because there'll be like a funny line or something that I want to say, and I'm like, there's no way I haven't used this in 13 books. I didn't just creatively think of this. And then you look back and go, hey, I haven't used that. That's fantastic. It's also a great resource to have if you get an email from somebody complaining, because I had a lady, apologies if I said this in an earlier podcast, but I had a lady who said that I used the word tepid too much in my books, and it drove her crazy. So I emailed her back. I was like, unlucky for you, I have every book in one file, and in 1.56 million words, I've used the word tepid 6 times. And that really doesn't seem like something you should bother the writer and to whine about. It's like I literally used it a half a dozen times in 12 books.
Wow. Now I'm going to be looking for that. Now and everything I read, I'll be looking for it. I might use it. I'm going to write it down. You put it in my next book somewhere just for you. I'm going to write it in there.
Because I'm afraid to use it now because I'm going to get hacked.
Exactly. But I'm going to write that the PDF of all the books. That is genius. I'm doing that as soon as we're off this podcast.
You'll need it. If you need it at 6 books, believe me, you'll need it at 16. And when you hit 20 books, it's going to be a really nice resource.
Oh my gosh. Incredible. Yeah. You've written so much over a, fairly short amount of time, because you've been doing 2 books a year for so long, so many different projects. But someone reached out, on an email, and it was like right after the first, I think it was before the second book came out, or maybe right after the second book, and they offered to do it. It was like their service. And I've gone through over the last year trying to find that email, and now there's a lot, and I can't find it. But someone offered, it's like that's their business, or so. I don't know if it's their business or it's just something that they have done for a couple authors. I can't really remember. But I remember thinking it's a great idea, but really not having the resources or time to really do it then. Now I was like, I need to find that person and really look, because I'd love to have a physical binder. Right now I have 2 computers. So I have one computer that I only write on, so it doesn't have anything else going on with that. Nothing else clutters it except for what's going on with this book. So I find that very, very helpful. But I think it would be helpful for me to have a physical binder of all these things as well.
And you have these fans that are so focused on the material that I don't want to say they know it better than you do, but I mean, they know some of it better than you might. And, which is the coolest thing in the world to have created something that people, take to like that. yeah, that would be they'd be better at doing it than I would, because I wouldn't necessarily know what was important in the series.
Yeah, no, good point. I distinctly remember a few times when people have reached out with things like that, where you realize you have this moment where you think, wow, this person knows this storyline almost better than I do. Like, I'd have to think back on it a little bit, but they've got it. And that's a really cool thing. And that's a really special thing as an author, I think, to have someone that's so into your work that they know it backwards and front. It's really, really a cool, special thing. Routine. And I know I've messed up your routine for the day, so I really appreciate you taking time to do this. But I'm trying to figure out also my routine going forward. Now I have this podcast studio. We moved. Last year was chaos with the move and everything else and all these other things going on. So now this is the year to get organized. Do you have a schedule, like a routine for the morning where you go from like 7 to noon and you're out in that? I know you have that out pool house area where you go and write. Is there a schedule that you try to stick to, or that you do stick to regardless, or what's your routine?
Yeah, I do. It's more so over time as things change. As you said, I got married and I have 3 stepkids now. So now there's carpool. School's just started back up, but my wife and I both came back from Zurich with COVID. So we both have COVID right now. So the kids aren't with us. We're sequestered, which I haven't had to drive carpool today. But usually I used to start like at 5 or 5:30 every morning, and now there's just other things that have to be done, and we have 4 dogs. So I probably really start about 7. And I write in one, block as long as I can. And it ends up being till noon or something, like just like you said. Yeah. And that's usually all the writing I do, unless I'm close to deadlines, which I have been close to deadlines for the past month. The day I was in LA for the premiere, and, obviously we had to get there early and do interviews and all that kind of stuff. I started working in the hotel lobby at 7:00 that morning. And I took some breaks for some things that I had to do, but it was like 3 p.m. where I went in to, take a shower and get ready to leave at 4:45. And I knew it was going to be like that. I knew I was going to be on deadline when the movie came out. And everybody thinks you're just walking around taking a victory lap, but in the back of your head going like, I did not get my 2,500 words today. I've got to,
2,500 a day is a goal.
It is. As I got later into the series, I always have it in my head how many words a book is going to be. I don't map the books out that well. I just sort of like say, well, it's just sort of a couple page overview of what's going to happen. And somehow I tell myself that I know how many words that is. I'm always way wrong. So I'm like, this one's only going to be 135. Well, I'm on page, and I'm at 135,000 words in, and I've got another 25,000 words to go. Yeah. So I ended up having to do a bunch of words. I had a few 6,000 word days in this book.
Those are tough. I've done one or two of those.
Yeah, those are really tough. And then you go back the next day. You spend the next morning.
Recovering.
The first thing Well, I'll just edit what I wrote. Yeah, and just try and see what makes sense out of that big long writing session. But yeah, I like to write sort of as early as I can, as long as I can, and then there's so much other stuff to do now with the media and publicity and all that. Hopefully do that in the afternoons when I can.
Yeah, I need to do that. I need to flip my day. I think flip the schedule and get up and just start going. But I think same thing. I have carpool as well, so I got to get that. I have that break in there that's mandatory, and then come back to it. But I think I need to flip the day instead of writing late, because that's when I have it's the most peaceful around here. Right. And but that's super late, and then you're just up, and I'm a zombie, and it's chaos. So I think I need to flip it. But you need to write twice as many words as most other authors, because most people will say 1,000 words a day, and you're this long, you've got a book, that sort of a thing. But you've got to double that. So 2,500 words a day for your books. That seems to make sense math wise, anyway. Yeah,
and it's only because early in the 6 months process of writing the book, I'm not hitting 1,000 words a day. I'm writing a little bit less. Yeah. So, but actually, as you get later in the book and the story is more gelled and the characters are more obvious to you, then it's sort of easier to write, go a little bit longer. And, you've done your research and all that sort of stuff. So, it's basically just typing the story out at that point, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. And you went to a few different places on this last trip that you just returned from, right? You were zipping around out there. Where'd you guys go?
I went to Zurich. So these are all locations in the book: Zurich and Milan, Italy. Zurich, Switzerland, Milan, Italy. And then I went to Geneva, Switzerland. The book doesn't take place in Geneva, but I have pretty much the biggest, most involved action scene out of any of my books ever. It's on a 4-hour train between Milan, Italy, and Geneva, Switzerland. And It goes through this place called the Simplon Tunnel, which is a 20-kilometer long tunnel under the Alps. And I just sort of realized in early July or mid-July, it's like, okay, I'm writing this big, long action scene. It's a 100-page action scene, basically. Wow. And it's probably 20% of the book almost. And I was like, okay, I can't, I'm seeing different things online. People, saying this is the way the train looks, or this is how this train works. It's like, I literally have to go there and do this route myself and spend the 4 hours walking around, taking pictures and learning how the emergency handle works to open the door and seeing where the electrical, junction is because it's an electric train and all these different things. So it was very, very helpful. I really went for that one reason, but there's a lot of location research in Zurich and Milan that I was able to do while I was there. So it was really invaluable. And we had fun. My wife came with me. Usually on a research trip, I go by myself, but it was a lot of fun to have her with me come along on that. And we had a blast.
That's awesome. Yeah, I need to. Yeah, COVID obviously couldn't travel. This last one, COVID was still going on. I couldn't get to Israel because they were like really strict about things. They kept changing everything at the last second. So first it was open for like a day, and then it was only Israeli citizens, and then it was all this, it was just hard. So I didn't make it over there, but I did a ton of research, and then I sent the book over there to a family. And 3 generations of this family read it in Israel, and they all wrote back and said that they couldn't believe I hadn't been there. So that really made me feel a lot better about it, because it was such an important part of this last novel. But I will get there eventually, and I need to write Israel back into a novel just so I can go there, as there's an official excuse to get over there.
Yeah, back in 2016, I was writing this book, Gunmetal Gray. And I like scuba diving, and I wanted to go scuba diving in Thailand. I've always been fascinated with Vietnam my entire life, and I wanted to go to Vietnam. And so I had this whole trip planned out, and scuba diving in Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam. And then I had to have ankle surgery, a few weeks before I was going to go. So I wrote that entire book on my couch, and the book turned out really well. I'd been to Asia before, so I was just sort of like, how you just kind of like take one location, say, all right, well, that's going to be this location, and do the best you can. Always better when you can go, but if you can't, you just tell yourself you've got to work hard and sell it. Yeah. Ken Follett, there's I don't know if it's Ken Follett, but there's some authors that like Ken Follett hadn't been to Afghanistan, and he wrote Lie Down with Lions, which is one of the best books ever. And so you can do it if you do the work.
Yeah, you can definitely do it, especially today, a little easier maybe than in the past. There's so many more resources available to authors today doing research. But I've got to get to Vietnam. Like all these different places that I've wanted to go my whole life are definitely on my list as to incorporate into future novels. No doubt about it. And then Rip Rawlings, man, is he still in Ukraine? What is he doing? So you've got the Gray Man series, you have Armored, you did Tom Clancy stuff. Awesome. I always get your books, by the way. I get them from Poison Pen, so I can get them signed every time. Got to support my friends, support the cause. Man, you guys did Red Metal, and I think is there another one you guys are working on or something?
Yeah. There will be a sequel to it, and COVID really slowed things down, and then the war in Ukraine, kicked off with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and Rip, my co-author there, former Marine Lieutenant Colonel, he was active duty when we wrote Red Metal. He's retired now. He and his wife went over there. She's a surgeon, and so she went over there to help. And he initially went over as a journalist, just to sort of report on it. And he got into Ukraine, and I don't think he told me this in confidence. He said he was just over there, and it was just so, it was just so bad that he couldn't just sit here and talk about it. So he started a foundation where he's actually supporting a battalion of foreign troops that are in the East in combat. And he started this foundation called Ripley's Heroes, and I've donated to it, and the money I donated went to buy communications equipment for this battalion, and they're buying optics, and I saw they just bought a truck for these people, and they're doing a lot of really good on the ground stuff there that's positively impacting things, and I think it's amazing. And we're not working on Red Medal 2 now because this is going on. But we'll get back to that, and I couldn't be more proud of Rip and everything he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, he has a website, I know, but he talks on about what's going on Twitter, I think more than anywhere else, with updates and everything. He essentially became a war correspondent after he went over there. So people can just put Rip Rawlings in there on Twitter and find him and link to all his stuff from there. And is he still over there? Has he come back for any breaks, or is he just?
He's come back a bunch and then gone back.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm actually. He came to Memphis a few weeks ago. Out of the Memphis, he came to my house a few weeks ago, and I saw him for one day. But I think he had plans to head back east at some point. And some of the time, I think he's been in Poland, like organizing things. But I know he's been in bomb shelters, and he's been there with wrecked out tanks and all that stuff. So he's definitely gotten in the thick of it, which is scary because he's a good friend. He's got a great family, amazing kids. But he also, this is what he lived his life preparing for, and among other things. And he spent a lot of time downrange in Afghanistan and Iraq, and this is super important to him, and I'm super proud of him.
Yeah, amazing. People can check out on Twitter and get the essentially daily updates from what's going on over there through his experience. And have you been back to tactical response lately?
No, I haven't. I've just been so busy this year with shooting. It's just funny. I was on the plane and just made this big to-do list of everything I need to do before the end of the year. Everything that's not writing, because that's pretty much all I've done all year, writing and publicity. And the list was, I need to get my Generation 3 Glock 19 set up for an optic, just like my SIG has. Nice. And I need to get, like the new stock put on my 6.5 Creedmoor. So I had like literally every, and as it came down, it's like virtually all of my guns need something done to them. And it was like my to-do list turned just into this like armory of stuff, and every one of my guns has got some kind of screw up that I needed to get fixed. And then I'm going to do some more shooting. I have a buddy here close to me who he's trained SWAT, and he's in Mississippi, and they have a shoot house there, and he runs the whole thing. And I go out there and shoot with him some, and he's always asking me to come down to Holly Springs, and I need to do that a lot more because he's such a great resource and a lot of fun. So I have a great opportunity if I can just get a half a day away here or there.
I heard we have very similar lists, I think, because I have that similar list working, but there's so many other things going on. You got to prioritize, obviously, and you kind of hit deadlines or get close-ish to them. But I think we have a very similar list as far as things that need to happen. And you've turned out tactical response. James Yeager out there sending thoughts and prayers his way. He's dealing with some health issues, and I know you've been on the range with him before. So
love that man.
Yeah, I'm thinking about him every day, and tough. But people can check out tactical response and send some prayers his way. He says not to do that, but I do it anyway.
No, he's great, and he's a great human being. He's made the world a safer place. It's like I don't know what else you can ask for in life. It's really good.
Yeah, good human being right there. And before I let you go, publishing trends. You've been doing this 2009. Obviously working on the first book before that. And so over that time period, what are things that you've noticed publishing wise, different trends in publishing, changes in publishing, with audio, with ebook, with hardcover, obviously, with what you did with Armored, is amazing and different. Things getting adapted now, not just to movies, obviously streaming services and series and all that sort of a thing. When you look back at that over a decade now that you've spent in publishing, does anything stand out to you, as a large change or a surprise or pleasant surprise, unpleasant surprise? Like, when you look back at that time frame, what are your thoughts?
Well, as far as pleasant surprises, I think people love stories, and not that I'm surprised people love stories, but there's so many other things that are vying for people's attention. Excuse me, it's COVID. That was my first cough the whole time. I'm very proud of myself.
Oh man, how do you feel, by the way? Like, do you feel?
I'm okay. I mean, it's just like a bad allergy. But yeah, people respond to stories, as you said, like the streaming services, and there's a lot more opportunity for stories than there were before. That said, there's more people doing it. I mean, obviously the main thing that's changed since I began was really sort of Amazon publishing and print on demand and that sort of stuff, because I got my book deal in 2008, and that stuff didn't really come around in full force until maybe 2010 or 2011.
Yeah.
So I felt like I was a dinosaur in the industry, like a year and a half after I got published or whatever, because people had asked me for advice about self-publishing. And I'm like, well, I can't really give you advice. I could tell you I probably would have done it, with one of my earlier books, if it had been a viable thing, because I believed in the books.
Yeah.
But now, having a few years into it, I look back and none of those books were ready. My agent said, he read some of my stuff and he's like, this isn't ready. You're a very good writer. Write something else. And then he read that and he's like, almost there, not quite. Write something else. And, that's obviously infuriating. And anybody that says, I've spent 3 or 4 years doing this and nothing's come of it, I know that's frustrating. But, a guy that has been at it as long as I am looks back at that and goes, those are the best years of your life. Like you're developing and you don't even know it. You feel like you're falling on your face, but you're not. You're a better writer at the end of it. So that kind of instant gratification of self-publishing, I think, has probably hurt some authors that could have been bigger or better. That's not to say that I think a self-published novel is not as good, because I don't feel that way at all. In fact, I love some of the stuff that I haven't had published, and if I went back and tweaked it, I think I could get it published. So there's obviously a lot of self-pub authors that are doing great and have put out incredible quality, and it's a different way to do it. And if they can find a way to get that, to get the exposure that they need. And not have that take away from their writing time. I mean, I see some people that are just marketing themselves and or marketing their book, and I'm like, gosh, nothing has sold more books for me more than writing another good book. And it's like there's really nothing else. So it's a positive trend that there is such an appetite for all these types of stories. And the negative side of it is I do think, quality has been watered down. It's still out there, but I bet you there's a lot of incredible writers who are self-published who just need someone to know about them. And it's so hard to jump out of that crowd and be seen. And who knows what we're missing out, some really great writing out there just because they're just in this slush of tens of thousands of books. There's a guy putting out books called Gray Man, and Amazon lets him do it. And I've read just a little sample of it, and there's no way he's a native English speaker. If he is, then he probably should go back to about 4th grade or whatever and take English again. But Amazon doesn't care,
Because he doesn't have the out there. So that's like, but I guess titles. You're not. Can you not trademark a title or something? I forget.
He doesn't use my name. And I think his character is called the Gray Man, or they're called Gray Man novels or something like that. But I haven't looked at it in a couple of years. People used to send it to me and said,
"That's not to even look at it." I bet it sold like one.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like I'm bringing more attention to him now than he's ever.
Exactly. We'll edit that out.
No, it's fine. I mean,
there's only one Gray Man right here.
Yeah. If you want to read his book, then go for it. But,
boom. All these ones right here. That's pretty wild. That is interesting, man. Wild. So this year, I mean, busy year, obviously. So now you're taking this breath for a second, maybe as you're editing and as you're finishing these edits on Burner, which comes out in February. Is that?
Yes.
So it comes out in February.
course. Yeah.
Nice. And the latest stuff is all out there right now with Armored out there. Sierra 6 is out there. All the other books, all the 20 plus novels are all out there. So if someone finds you today, they have just a wealth of books that they can dive into, which is awesome. But when you're thinking about this next year and finishing these edits, what's this year look like then? Is the Rip Rawlings stuff depending on Ukraine and his schedule? Maybe some Armored, another Gray Man. What else is in the works for you this year?
Yeah, I mean, after I finish Gray Man 12, the one I'm doing now, I will go into Armored 2, I think, and I'll work on that for a while, and then I'll go on to Gray Man 13. And then hopefully Rip and I can get together and we can do the second Red Metal. The first Red Metal, we did so much travel for it. I went to many countries and talked to lots and lots of people. And so we need the same effort and the same commitment to the next one. And so it's just a timing thing. But yeah, I mean, I'll do 2 books next year, and I'll get off that train. I definitely won't. I definitely won't, agree to a schedule like that any longer. I've just done it long enough, and it's, you get terrified about the quality being watered down. People think it's like painting a fence, and if you work more hours, you'll get more books, and it's not necessarily good books. So you really want to keep quality high is more important than the quantity.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. Amazing. Well, congratulations on all of this. Armored right there, available now. Sierra 6 right here is out there. I love this cover, by the way. Thank you. Very cool.
Oh, thanks.
All of them are great, but that one really stood out to me. Gray Man, bam! You haven't seen it on Netflix? Check it out and read the books. Obviously, so cool. And are you on hitting BoucherCon and Thriller Fest next year, or what?
Yeah, I'll be at BoucherCon in a few weeks.
Nice.
And then I'll go. I don't even know where it is next year, but I'll go.
I think San Diego I saw. So I can't make it this year, but I'll see you there in San Diego. I think it's San Diego next year. And then Thriller Fest, I'll be there next year in late May, I think.
Great.
Next time around. So hopefully I'll see you at those if I don't see you somewhere beforehand. Man, when I look back on our pre-COVID years, it was so awesome to be able to sit down with you at a couple book signings and have our little show on the road. It's always so much fun to be at those with you, and we always have a great time. So hopefully we get to do that at some point again as well. It's always always a blast.
Yeah. Well, congratulations to everything that's happened to you this year. You hit number 1, which was so inevitable, but it's nice that it did happen. Everybody saw that coming, and then the show. You and I have spent 2 years talking about these projects that someday were going to come out, and I joked, I'm like, there's going to be a point where that my movie is on TV, and I'm just going to flip right by it, and that point has already happened. I'm like, yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, so but it's it's a great situation to be in. So
Cool.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Amazing. And hopefully we'll see you sooner rather than later. But man, congratulations again, and thank you for all your support over the years. And man, time for you to get back to work.
Yeah. You too, bud.
Awesome.
Thanks.
All right. Hey, take care. Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you to our presenting sponsor, Navy Federal Credit Union. I have been a member since 1996. There's my original card right there. I got that at Dam Neck, Virginia, when I was at Intelligence Specialist A School at the Navy and Marine Corps Intelligence Training Center on Dam Neck, Virginia, right before I went to BUD/S. So it was boot camp, ISA school, BUD/S, and then off to the races in the SEAL team. But the entire time, to include through today, I have been a member of Navy Federal Credit Union. And now they're sponsoring this podcast, which is amazing. Crazy how things come full circle like that. Becoming a member at Navy Federal Credit Union lets you experience more. From everyday commutes to your next big vacation, the flagship credit card earns you 3 times the points on travel, so you can get rewarded for wherever you're headed next. Plus, this premium travel card has a low annual fee of $49 and 2 times the points on all purchases outside of travel, which means the rewards don't have to end even when the vacation does. Speaking of rewards, you can get a Navy Federal auto loan and reward yourself with a new car. Applying is easy. You can do it on their mobile app, online, or by phone. And it's so fast, you can get a decision in seconds. Navy Federal Credit Union has great rates on auto loans. With their car buying service powered by TrueCar, you can shop, compare, and get upfront pricing on your next new or used car. At Navy Federal, our members are the mission. Nice. I like that. Navy Federal is insured by NCUA, open to the armed forces, the DoD, veterans, and their families. Flagship rates are variable and range between 10.74% and 18% APR based on credit worthiness. ATM fees for cash advances are up to $1 at non-Navy Federal ATMs. Credit and collateral subject to approval. Message and data rates may apply. Visit NavyFederal.org for more information and to apply. That's NavyFederal.org. I want to thank my friends at Black Rifle Coffee for sponsoring the Danger Close podcast. I've been a huge fan for the longest time. Drink Black Rifle Coffee every day. And if you keep your eyes peeled, you will notice that perhaps Chris Pratt is wearing a Black Rifle Coffee t-shirt, not unsimilar to this one, in the Amazon series adaptation of The Terminal List. Now you can go to blackriflecoffee.com/dangerclose and use code DangerClose20 at checkout for 20% off your purchase and your first coffee club order. Black Rifle Coffee, America's coffee. Keep crushing. It's time to get mountain tough. Make America tough again, right there on the shirt. You know, when you go to the gym and you don't know what workout to do, I hate that. With Mountain Tough, they have created the most functional fitness programs ever designed, all delivered to your phone. Created by veteran Navy SEALs and Army Rangers, they make it convenient to go to the gym, do the prescribed workout, and get in the best shape of your life physically and mentally. As you know, if you've been following me for a while, I've been doing a lot more typing than I've been doing running or lifting or doing any functional type fitness. So this is how I'm going to get back after it. Mountain Tough. Plus, they're awesome guys. I've met them down here. We did a little podcast type interview together, and they are awesome. Solid crew. So that's what I'm going to be doing. And increase mental toughness, build muscle, improve endurance anytime, anywhere from any mobile device. Thousands of hours of testing on dedicated mountain hunters, first responder, and military personnel. Programs for everyone, those who hit the gym and heavy weights, those who like to work out at home with no gear at all. Guidance for beginner, intermediate, and elite athletes. The right nudge from the right person at the right time can change your destiny. And regardless of your age or circumstances, I am nudging you to start today, as I know the Mountain Tough programs and Mountain Tough community will enable you to become the best version of yourself. Mountain Tough, that is MTNTOUGH, is offering Danger Close listeners 20% off all their online training programs and apparel with the code DangerClose at mtntough.com. Welcome to the gear highlight portion of the Danger Close podcast. First, t-shirt that I'm wearing today. Look at that. Chuck Heavy. Whoop. How about that? Chuck Heavy right there. An organization was started in Charles H. Keating IV's memory. It's called the C4 Foundation. C4foundation.org. Go and check them out. Read his story. His Navy Cross citation is on that page as well. He was killed in Iraq, and this foundation was started in his honor to support SEALs and their families. So go check that out. Once again, C4foundation.org. What else is going on? All right. Pretty excited about this. One of the first drops from Origin's new hunting line. It's the Raptor camo pattern right here. And exclusive drop, bam, cross tomahawks available only at officialjackcarr.com. Hit the link up there to shop, to go to the merch. And there are two camo patterns. There is the Highland Raptor camo and the Woodland camo, and you can get them right there on the site. Once again, one of the first drops that Origin is doing with this new camo pattern is coming out on officialjackcarr.com with the cross tomahawks right there. Once again, limited edition in time for elk season, and the best part, made in the USA. So thank you, Origin. Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Jocko. Awesome. I'll be wearing it in the field this season. And what else do I have going on here? Glenn Eberly of Eberly Stock, of course. Man, what an awesome guy. Air Force veteran. And you can go check out the podcast that we did together. Just go to Danger Close Podcast and check that one out. He sent me a nice little care package here. So Eberly Stock, you've seen me wearing these hats before, probably. Love their stuff. Glenn, thank you so much for the whiskey, Pendleton whiskey right here. And it was really cool. I opened this up, very kind note from Glenn, so thank you. But this is really cool. I don't know if you can see that right here. Pick that up right here. And it says, each edition of Director's Reserve is adorned with an authentically leathersmith neck cuff by third-generation saddle maker Randy Sevier. Like his father and his father before him, each year Randy crafts the coveted Pendleton Roundup Trophy saddle. His philosophy is simple. Make the best saddle you can, then make the next one better. I love that because that's what I think about when I'm doing anything in life, particularly the books. I want it to be the best book it can possibly be, but then I want the next one to be better. So very cool. So Glenn, thank you so much for sending this. It is sincerely appreciated. And thank you for everything else that you included in there as well. Look at that. I just opened this stuff, so the tag is still on. But I love what they're doing over there at Eberly Stock. Very cool group of people over there. So thank you so much for sending this. And look at this. Bam, right here. This is the type of pack that Chris Pratt wore in episode 5 of the Terminal List. So this is really cool. And you can go to my blog and check out a bunch of the different gear from the show. And included in that is this pack right here. So thank you so much, Glenn. Thank you, everybody at Eberly Stock. And yeah, you might have noticed Chris wearing a couple different Eberly Stock packs in the show, but this one right here is from episode 5 in our tribute to Heat right there at the end, and that gunfight at the end. So, and Glenn also was thoughtful enough to send me this book right here. I've been meaning to read this for the longest time. So thank you for sending it. And thank you for your kind note in here as well. Once again, you can find Glenn Eberly on the podcast. And that's it for today. Take care out there. Thank you for tuning in to the Danger Close podcast, an Ironclad original presented by Navy Federal Credit Union. To find out more about Mark Greaney, go to his website, markgraineybooks.com, and you spell it Greaney, markgraineybooks.com. You can link to his social channels from there. You can follow me at Jack Carr USA on the social channels, officialjackcarr.com. That is the email. You can sign up for the newsletter there, and you can also click shop for the merch. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to leave a 5-star rating and review wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to subscribe. Until the next time, take care out there. Be safe, stay strong, keep fighting.